Some people appear in our lives like a passing breeze, but there are others who, even if we only meet briefly or have never truly been close, remain forever in our minds. Day after day, you continue living, continuing your work, still smiling, still going about your usual routine. But whenever a moment of silence passes, the image of that person returns. They come uninvited and leave without being pushed away. Have you ever experienced this? You try to explain it logically, maybe because they once treated you well, left a mark in your heart, or simply because you haven't let go of an old story. But the more you try to rationalize, the more confused you become. Because sometimes you might not even love them. Sometimes that relationship isn't special at all. Sometimes you don't even understand why they become a gentle obsession lasting months or years. So, what is really happening inside you? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist of the 20th century, once said, "What we do not understand within ourselves will repeat outside as fate." Jung didn't believe the appearance of someone in our mind was random. He thought it could be a call from the unconscious, a whisper from the spiritual realm, or even a signal from the universe reminding us to explore a part of ourselves. These lingering thoughts are not just nostalgia. Sometimes they represent a psychological process where your mind is trying to bring back parts that were rejected, forgotten, or never understood into the light of awareness. In this article, we will embark on a journey to explain this phenomenon through profound psychological concepts of Carl Jung. Projection happens when that person is merely a mirror reflecting your inner world. Anima and Animus are archetypes of opposite genders in the unconscious. Idealization and love. Plato, where the other person becomes a symbol of the ideal you seek. Synchronicity, when the universe answers you with meaningful coincidences. And finally, the concept of individuation, the journey toward inner unity and maturity. You might think you're just missing someone, but sometimes, deeper than that, that person is a key to opening the door within yourself, where your secrets, pains, desires, and true light are hidden. Projection happens when that person reflects your soul. You think you're attracted to someone because they possess something special, a smile, a presence, a charisma, and you believe that feeling is real, a love from your heart. But Jung invites you to look deeper. Are you sure you love them? Or are you loving a part of yourself you have never recognized? The concept of projection in Jungian psychology answers this seemingly mysterious phenomenon. He said that whenever we are attracted to someone or even annoyed by them, it often isn't about that person, but about parts inside us being pushed outward. Simply put, we see ourselves in others. Positive projection happens when admiration echoes from within. You might admire someone's confidence, optimism, creativity, or intelligence that makes them stand out in a crowd. You may think you can never be like them. But actually, what attracts you is not their difference, but that they reflect qualities you have forgotten, hidden, or not dare to believe you also possess. Jung called this positive projection. When you see in others what you long to develop within yourself, the strong emotions you feel for them, even without talking, is really an inner reunion. A deep part of you is quietly knocking, reminding you that you once had those qualities or can develop them again. A woman might admire a man for his calmness and rationality. Perhaps she lacks that ability in her life. A man might be drawn to a woman's empathy and sensitivity. Perhaps that is a tenderness in him that hasn't spoken for a long time. Negative projection occurs when discomfort is a mirror reflecting your shadow. But projection isn't only admiration. Sometimes you find someone extremely annoying, unreasonable, or even making you feel bad without knowing why. According to Jung, that is a sign of negative projection. You see in them a part of your darkness, traits you have rejected, been hurt by, or never dare to face. For example, you hate selfishness but get irritated by carefree people. You despise rudeness but can't stop caring about someone who is blunt. This doesn't mean you're like them, but you're reacting to a suppressed part within you that you don't want to admit you have. Jung calls this the shadow. It contains all the things you were taught not to have, not to show, that no one would love you for if you did. So you bury them deep in your soul. But those parts don't disappear. They hide in the unconscious and project outwards. Whenever you feel long-lasting irritation toward someone, stop and ask yourself, what is this person reflecting that you don't want to face? When projection becomes an invitation to healing, Jung doesn't see it as negative. On the contrary, he believes it's a door to deeper self-understanding. Whether the person is the object of admiration or annoyance, they act as a spiritual mirror, showing you parts that need attention, recognition, and reintegration. You might think you love someone, but you're actually invited to love a part of yourself you've never dared to face. You might think someone hurts you, but they're only triggering an old wound, and that feeling is leading you toward healing. Projection is not your fault. It's a natural psychological mechanism. But once you realize this, you begin to free yourself from dependency. Stop projecting all onto that person and start nurturing those qualities within yourself. Anima and Animus awaken the gendered self inside you. Here is a truth few realize. In every man, there is a feminine part, and in every woman, there is a masculine part. These parts are invisible to the naked eye. They don't show through appearance, speech, or career choices, but reside deep within the spiritual and psychological realms of each person. Jung called these parts anima, the feminine self inside a man, and animus, the masculine self inside a woman. And there are moments in life when someone appears as a vivid symbol that stirs you, haunts you, and you can't stop thinking about them. Not just because of their looks or your story, but because they awaken those hidden gendered cells within you. Anima is when a man is captivated by gentleness, creativity, and intuition. Imagine a man who has always lived rationally, disciplined, even rigidly. Suddenly one day, he meets a gentle, empathetic, creative, and free woman. He can't explain why he is drawn to her energy. There's something soft, like flowing water or a gentle breeze, that seems to melt his hardened heart. According to Jung, that is when the anima inside him speaks up. That woman, even if briefly appearing, becomes a mirror reflecting the feminine side he long rejected. The connection to emotion, dreams, art, compassion, and nurturing. He's not in love with her, but with his anima longing for recognition, and that woman somehow becomes a symbol activating this process. Animus is when a woman is attracted to strength, determination, and logic. Conversely, a woman who usually lives emotionally, intuitively, and nurturing may develop a mysterious passion for a man who is rational, decisive, confident, and capable of leadership. That man makes her feel protected, understood, and intellectually stimulated without many words. That's when the animus in her awakens. Jung believed a woman is not only a source of emotion, but also harbors rationality, action, ideals, and courage inside. When a man activates her animus, she is not only drawn to him but tends to idealize him, believing he is her destined one. But again, this is not necessarily true. Understanding anima and animus correctly prevents illusions. Jung always warned that we often don't love the real person, but the inner image we project onto them. With anima and animus, this happens even more. That person becomes a perfect ideal hidden and longed for by our mind. When meeting someone with a similar energy, we easily fall into a sense of fate or even soul love. But beware, if you're not careful, you may spiral into idealization, where every small action of that person is interpreted as sacred and you drift further from reality. You no longer see them as they really are, but as someone with a mission to awaken your soul. Jung doesn't deny this attraction, but emphasizes that anima and animus are for developing within yourself, not for seeking in others. Integration is the journey of spiritual maturity. How to escape illusions and truly mature from this experience. It's when you realize intense feelings for that person are an inner signal, a reminder that you lack balance between gender energies within your soul. If you are a man who suppresses emotions, allow yourself to be vulnerable, listen, touch art, care. If you are a woman living by instinct and emotion, learn to act decisively, rationally, with conviction. This is how you integrate anima and animus to become whole, harmonious, and strong from within. When you achieve this, you will no longer depend on that person's image. You can still remember them and thank them for being a bright mirror, but you won't be blindly drawn in because you have found that within yourself. Idealization and platonic love happen when that person becomes your spiritual symbol. Some people you can't stop thinking about not because of physical attraction or many specific memories, but because they seem like an idea, a perfect shadow, an ideal light in your mind. They exist in your thoughts not as a flesh and blood person, but as a sacred, pure, and captivating symbol. This is when you experience a special phenomenon Jung linked with Plato's philosophy, Idealized love. Platonic love is when you love the soul more than the body. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, described a love beyond physical boundaries, beyond desire, beyond reality's constraints, where beloved becomes a gateway leading you to truth, goodness, and beauty that your soul longs for. Carl Jung developed this idea into psychoanalytic theory. He believed sometimes the person we obsess over is not a person but an idea, an ideal internal model unconsciously projected onto them. When idealizing someone, we no longer see them as a whole person with light and shadow, but as a monument to all we long for in life and ourselves. You might think of someone as an unchosen dream, someone who seems different from the rest, someone who, just by appearing in memory, makes you feel better, more refined, more meaningful. They become a symbol of the purest part of your soul. Idealization can be a motivation or a spiritual trap. It's undeniable that idealization can inspire strongly. That person might motivate you to live better, develop yourself, love beauty and nobility. You might write, compose, meditate, study, or overcome pain just from the inspiration their image brings. However, Jung also warns that idealization is a double-edged sword. If you're not alert, you can get stuck in a beautiful but false illusion. You start projecting all perfect qualities onto that person and increasingly lose the ability to see them as an ordinary person with flaws, contradictions, and limits. You expect them to understand you, heal you, guide you through suffering. Then when reality falls short, you feel disappointed, empty, even shattered. But actually, what disappoints you isn't them but the dream you painted around them. Transform idealization into the model you once admired. Jung doesn't tell you to reject idealization. Instead, he encourages you to face that reflection and realize that all the qualities you love in that person also lie dormant within you. If you love someone for their wisdom, learn to read, observe, and think critically like them. If you're obsessed with someone's calmness, start meditating to touch the stillness within your soul. If you're captivated by a deep, artistic soul, pick up a pen, an instrument, or enter your inner world as a true artist. Every quality you idealize in others reminds you that you can become like that or even more. When you transform idealization into motivation for self-development, you break free from dependence on the idealized figure. You gradually mature emotionally and spiritually and can love reality and others as they are, not as you expect them to be. Love is a journey inward. Ultimately, Jung emphasizes that love isn't about finding the other half outside, but a journey deep inside to reclaim lost parts of yourself. The person you can't stop thinking about may be the guide who activates values, ideals, and inner beauty you have never truly lived by. They aren't a savior or fate. They are symbols, and symbols can shine but need not be possessed. You can thank them quietly and continue your path to rediscover wholeness within. Synchronicity happens when strange coincidences signal from the universe. Have you ever thought of someone minutes before they text you or accidentally heard a song that reminded you of them when you felt down? Maybe you were walking through an empty street and a figure resembling them passed by. You froze, emotions surged, and you couldn't explain why. Many call this coincidence, but Jung calls it synchronicity. Events that seem random but carry profound inner meaning like a message in the universe exactly when you need to see, understand, or awaken. Synchronicity is when the mind and the outer world meet. Jung defined it as two events occurring simultaneously without a clear causal link, but having deep spiritual or emotional significance for the experiencer. It's not because you cause it, but because your mind and the outer world resonate like two rivers meeting at the right point. For example, you hesitate about ending an unclear relationship, and at that moment, you see a billboard saying, "Let go to grow." Or you're missing someone hopelessly when suddenly a white butterfly lands right before you, awakening you. No one can scientifically prove these events, but the soul knows. Jung believes synchronicity bridges psychology and mysticism, science and spirituality, where seemingly distant things permeate each other through a deeper order beyond reason. The universe is talking to you. Are you listening? In modern life, we're so used to explaining everything logically. Oh, just coincidence. My brain's imagining things. I'm too sensitive. But for those diving deep into spiritual awakening, synchronicity is the language of the universe. The universe uses circumstances, images, sounds, numbers, dreams, symbols to send you signals, reminders, warnings, directions. Most importantly, it's a sign you're not alone, that an invisible force accompanies you, pushing you forward on the path of inner growth. When you can't stop thinking about someone and everything around you seems to lead to them, ask yourself, what does this person represent in my spiritual journey? They may not be someone to hold on to, but someone who helps you realize something important awakening inside. Synchronicity and the soul's choice. Jung believes synchronic events don't make you blindly believe in fate, but invite you to dialogue with yourself. Something inside you has opened, a yearning, a wound, a lesson, a call long forgotten. And that person, along with the synchronicity chain related to them, is the universe's response to this transformation. You may see them as fate, but fate doesn't mean being together. Sometimes fate is only to meet, to awaken. They may appear once, but leave echoes lasting years. Every time you encounter a coincidence about them, it's not to lead you deeper into illusion, but to turn you inward to face unfinished business. It could be a fear you need to overcome, a feminine or masculine part to develop, a value to courageously live, or simply a part of your soul, quietly reminding you, be mindful, don't chase signs. Understand what they reflect. The important thing when facing synchronicity is not to fall into superstition or dependence on external signals. Because synchronicity's purpose isn't to chase that person or find explanations about them, but to understand what depths of your consciousness are moving. Jung said, you cannot change what you are not aware of. Every strange case is a hint. Where are you in your awakening journey? What do you need? What do you fear? Stop, breathe deeply, record synchronicity moments, and ask, if this is a message for me, what is it? No one else needs to interpret it. The answer is already in your heart. Individuation happens when that person becomes a catalyst for you to return to your true self. At the end of every inner journey Jung outlined stands a core concept, individuation. It's not about becoming different from the world or becoming a better version by social standards, but a journey to harmonize all that you are, the light and dark, the conscious self and the deep unconscious. And strangely, sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about is the mirror, the catalyst, the sacred connection that helps you start this journey. Individuation leads you back to wholeness. In everyday life, people get fragmented. We try to live roles as father, mother, lover, employee, good person. Each role demands a mask. Gradually, we lose connection to ourselves. We become scattered pieces while our soul longs for unity. Jung believed individuation is a return to the authentic self, unaffected by external expectations or inner illusions, a primal, whole, harmonious self. That's why those haunting people often don't come to stay, but to knock on your subconscious door. Their presence stirs layers of emotions, longing, fear, pain, hope, and nostalgia. This chaotic chain forces you to reflect, to ask why you react this way. What does this person really represent in your life? Are they your spiritual companion or a mirror? We often get caught asking, do they love me? Is there fate? Should I keep them? Deeper questions are, what do they help me see about myself that I've never realized? Maybe they reflect a part you forgot. Maybe they resemble an unhealed wound. Maybe they represent the person you want to become. Or deeper, they embody a soul lesson you need to pass to evolve. Sometimes the one who breaks your heart helps you grow. The one you miss deeply leads you back to yourself. The one who never belonged to you helps you belong to your true self. Integrating the shadow, the key to individuation. A crucial part of individuation is facing the shadow. Everything you denied, rejected, suppressed, weakness, anger, ambition, pain, even the longing for love you once saw as weakness or evil. That person somehow awakens that shadow, makes you feel what you don't want to feel, remember what you forgot, forcing you to choose between fleeing or facing. If you have the courage to stay with yourself, observe feelings without judgment. Each emotion becomes an integrated part. You no longer hide. You start seeing and understanding yourself more clearly, little by little returning to yourself. Not everyone who moves you is someone you must keep. Jung said, truth doesn't hurt you. Refusing to look at truth does. They may leave. They may never know how you feel. They may not return your feelings. But that doesn't make this experience meaningless. On the contrary, it could be the spark of your deepest personal awakening. They don't come to complete you. They come to remind you that you are already whole. You just hadn't noticed. When you're whole, you won't depend on any image. Eventually, when individuation ripens, you realize you don't need to keep that person in your mind forever. You don't need the universe to send.